Hi guys, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another episode. So today, we're just going to be looking at these old maps of Tartaria, really focusing on the northeast of Tartaria. So recently we have been looking more at the empires of Tamerlane and the sections that go into like Little Tartary, which would be over here on the map. But today we're just going to be having a look at this map because it has quite a lot of information written on it. And fortunately for you, I have got a translation. So we're going to look at some of this stuff, see what it says, and hopefully learn some things about Tartary. The map of Tartaria, or the kingdom of the Great Sham. See that a lot of Tartarians refer to the emperor as the Sham or the Khan. It can be different, but it might imply that the Sham actually comes from more to the northeast and the Khans come from around here. So that is a possibility. So if we come down to the bottom left, this bit here says, "This map contains the area of Tartaria, with the remaining part of East Asia to the Morning Ocean, subject to the Great Khan, whose might is bounded by the River Ob, Lake Cathay, the Volga, the Caspian Sea, the River Shezl, the mountains of Uson, the area of Tibet, the River Karamora, and the ocean." So before we read any more, we're just going to examine some things that we can see on this map. So down here is obviously Japan, listed there, and it's in quite a strange position compared to where we'd consider Japan to usually be, much more south, because as you can see, China is down here. On this side, we can see America, and down here is California, but not the state of California. This is the California from the Mexican side, the Baja California, which is here. So normal California is just a little bit higher. And around here would be where San Francisco is located today, somewhere possibly in this section here, maybe a bit higher, but it is difficult to work out. But as you can see, this has quite a lot of cities on this coast, which is interesting. The Spanish had apparently reached this coast by 1513, but would they have had all these towns built by then? Now you can see here that this particular map comes from 1609 apparently, from Abraham Ortelius. So that's almost 100 years since the Spanish had apparently reached the west coast of America. Would they have already created this many towns and cities by that point? You tell me. Or are these possibly people that have made the jump over? There are stories that the people of Arsareth, which we will be learning a small bit about here, but the tribes of Arsareth apparently made the jump across there into America and became the Native Americans, which could possibly be the connection to Tartaria in America. Now down here is the Caspian. It usually runs north to south, but on this map and on quite a few others, they seem to draw it with more of a west to east positioning, which is rather strange, but that could just be due to numerous factors to do with the way they were deciphering the North Pole at that point, and the fact that these maps will be a conglomeration of multiple maps taken from areas, so it's reliant on individual areas to have their shit together. Astrakhan is right here, so we know of Astrakhan. It's at the north end of the Caspian Sea, and if we go to here, this is the region of Astrakhan, and up here is Kazan, as part of the region of Kazan here, and that's the city of Kazan. So we've seen those before on the channel, we've seen maps of them, and we've also seen what they look like today. So if you'd like to see that, go and check that other video out. We will be going back to do it at another point. But here is Crimea, so that is Ukraine today, and that is Little Tartary, or Lesser Tartary, or as it became known, Little Russia, and Ukraine eventually. So we'll move up to here and see what this text has to say. So we're just looking at this section here, and it says, "The Nephilites are named Nephtali after one of the 10 tribes with a Hebrew name, and after the Danites, who by way of punishment were called the Danes of the Dark North, and they were on account of the claims of Rachel Balba, placed to the side in the area of the Hudoras or Iudoras. In the year 476 they were victorious in their battle against Perosa. Others call them incorrectly Euthalites." So that's quite interesting, some things to look up who this Perosa person is, that they apparently defeated in 476. So that is the Nephilites, and it's also referring to the Danites, which I'm sure a lot of you will have heard of the Danites before. The Danes of the Dark North. That's quite an interesting name, isn't it? So we'll have to keep that in mind for future videos. Maybe that'll pop up again and we'll piece these things together. Here, it says the Scythian Ocean, according to Plinius, has sweet water, and he also says it contains many islands, as Marco Polo also says, but neither of the two tells about their number or location. So, according to Marco Polo and this other dude, this has sweet water, which sounds pretty unrealistic, but that's what they're saying. Now, we'll assume that today this is the ocean known as the Kara Sea in Russia. I think that must be where it's referring to. It's either that or the East Siberian Sea, but obviously the map for Siberia is incomplete. The way that this goes up here seems incorrect. That possibly be down here facing there, but we're not entirely sure, because this is, you know, prime Siberia region right next to Moscow here. This is Russia, so, you know, when you consider, and Ukraine, this is very close to Europe. It's not as far as modern day maps would suggest you'd have to go, which is strange. And especially when it comes down to these cities on the coast. Assume you'd be aware that the ocean was actually in front of you, you know? You could tell the difference between grass and fucking water. Now this bit here where it says it says Tabor. So Tabor or Tiber, centre of the area of the Tartars, where once the holy books got lost, yet they are united under one king, who in 1540 first reached France and King Franciscus, and later, at the initiative of Charles V, was burnt at the stake for his heresy, because he had secretly endeavoured to convert Christian kings to the Jewish religion, about which he had spoken with Charles V. Now, Charles V was the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire for a number of years in the 16th century, which does match what he seems to be saying, as well as King Francis. Clearly, there was somebody here who got involved, and he made it all the way to France, and was supposedly attempting to convert Christian kings or Christian leaders from Europe to Judaism. That's what it seems to be suggesting, and he was burnt at the stake for that. So that's very intriguing, isn't it, to think that this king has gone into Europe and been killed by the Roman Empire. That is something to debate. Now, another interesting thing that we'll look at, in Czechia there is a place called Tabor. Now, it's clearly not the same Tabor, because that is obviously referencing something that is beyond Russia in Siberia region. I was looking at Tabor, I noticed that the coat of arms for Tabor looks like this. So if any of you guys have been watching the other videos, you might recognize this, and particularly in the black and yellow. The black and yellow is something we see on a lot of Tartarian flags, and the double eagle, which we were seeing in the last book all over, particularly Russian cities that had been obviously under the control of either Muscovite empires or Tartarian empires at other points. So I found that quite interesting to see this appear in Tabor. So is this city named after these people, or have they moved there from Tabor in Tartaria? It also raises questions about if World War I was actually against the Tartarians, because if we look at the Austro-Hungarian Empire for a moment. Now, here we are on the coat of arms of the Austria-Hungary Empire between 1915 and 1918, which was literally during World War I. We can see not only have they got the Tartarian griffin with the yellow and black, but they also have the double eagle, or double phoenix as some people like to call it, it doesn't really matter, but the double bird with the crowns and in the black and yellow format. This is getting extremely curious about why this imagery seems to keep reappearing everywhere. You can single eagle there, this single eagle here, and this unification of empires. There is a double there that's facing that way, but as you can see, this imagery just keeps appearing. But now we come to Arsareth. Here the 10 tribes retreated and changed from the Tatar or Tartar area to Scythia. Since then they are called Goths or Gothans, confirming God's highest glory, and here lies the splendid kingdom of Cathay, or Cathay, whichever way that's really pronounced. So this provides some interesting things to think about. The first being what I said about the Tatar, which as you can see over here is pronounced T-O-T-A, Tatatoru, or Tartatorum. So that is what I've been talking about on the last video, if you saw that, where we spoke about how they've added that extra R to make it Tartar, not Tatar. So it's Tartarian. And the same thing seems to have happened with barbarians. They've added that R, so it's actually Babarian or Baba-Arian, so Father Aryan. Bulgarians, same thing. Hungarians, same thing. So that is another tie-in to possibly Germany and what was going on there. Another very interesting point that they made is about them being called Goths or Gothans, because I don't know if you guys remember who supposedly sacked Rome. The Goths, obviously spelt a little bit differently, but supposedly the Goths sacked Rome. And it's telling us here that these tribes of Israel, who used to be called Tartarians, came to Arsareth and their name became the Goths. Over here we can see Turkestan, and down here is Samarkand, which we know was Tamerlane's capital city when he was in charge of the empire in the 13 to 1400s. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Turkestan, and it says the area from which the 10 tribes as allies living on this side of the mountain range have been called 900 years ago by the Persians to fight the armies of Ismail the Muslim. Is another very interesting thing, because it's saying that 900 years prior, these Tartarians, or these remnants of the 10 tribes of Israel, were called by the Persians to fight against Ishmael the Muslim. Now Ishmael is supposedly Abraham's son. Ishmael, the son of Abraham. And if that is the case, we're looking at somebody that should have been alive by official records in 16th century BC. So if he's supposedly 900 years before this map was drawn, because you know 9, so if we take 900 years away from that, we're looking at about 700 AD. So is it possible that Abraham's son was around in 700 AD, meaning that Abraham was actually around in about 650 AD, after Jesus? Now that would flip the Bible upside down, wouldn't it? That would mean that Abraham actually came after Jesus. Now that's a very interesting thought. We'll have to explore that again one day. So keep that in mind. This is very interesting stuff, this. Here it just says the Great Khan, which in the language of the Tartars means emperor, the highest ruler of Asia. And we come now to Argon. Now Argon seems to be a different name for Tenduc, which on the next map that we go to is going to be something we're going to really focus on, because that has some more interesting stuff for us. It says, once there was in Asia a Christian kingdom known to Prester John, and D. Thomas founded it in this place, so that it was in contact with the Church of Rome, and was subjected to Rome through Prester John of Africa. Before it was defeated by the Goths, it was known as Crive Remove. The Goths come from Arsareth. Now, interestingly, we know that the Goths of Rome that sacked Rome in Italy came from the north. And also, notice that name Prester John, so that's going to come back. It's interesting that they call him Prester John of Africa. It's quite specific. As we're going to see in other maps, he apparently founded the city of Tenduc, which is a city we can't find today. A lot of these places, the names, you won't be able to find them. So if you can do, feel free, because if any of you guys can locate some of this stuff, it would really help. Down here at Japan, it just says the Isle of Japan, called Zipangri by Marco Polo of Venice, formerly called Chryse, once attacked by the Great Khan in war, but without success. So these guys apparently have had wars with the Khans, but the Khans could never win. Apparently this place was called Chryse, or however that's pronounced. Now I do have some translations of the little things around here. So this one here says, here you can find great quantities of aromatic reeds. Also wanted to bring your attention to Bulgar there. If you don't know this, the Bulgarians actually come from here. This is the old Bulgaria before they got moved out and they had to go. So this was the kingdom of Bulgar, and it's the Bulgar because they're from the Volga River. The B and the V sometimes get swapped. So they are the people who come from this river. So the Bulgarians, really. Interesting piece of history for you there. Down here it says, here rubies are found. Here at Tenduc, it actually says, here the art of printing was invented thousands of years ago, as they say. So apparently printing was invented thousands of years ago in Tenduc, according to this map. This is the mountain I was talking about. It says, Mount Althe, where all the emperors of Tartaria are buried, seems to have been described by Hython the Armenian under the name of Belgium. So yeah, as you can see, that this is that's the Belgian mountains, which is weird, or Mount Althe as it was called. And up here with the Danites, I forgot to do this bit, it says the Scythian promontory of the Danai or Danite, a tribe which has disappeared because it has been expelled or has left. So it's really starting to look like the tribes of Israel come from Russia, isn't it, at this point? There's a lot of rumours that the Danites appeared in Ireland. So is it possible that these Danites left here and went to Ireland? There's a text, I'll have to find it, but it was an Irish text talking about our Irish armies having battles in the east, and a soldier says, "Sir, I've caught a Tartar." And I was like, I don't remember the Irish having a war in the middle of Mongolia, so I found it odd that they'd be having a fight with Tartars, unless of course Danites have arrived in Ireland. Now that suddenly makes sense, doesn't it? Because Tatars have arrived and they're having battles. And down here, just under Tibet, it says, from these mountains stones are thrown up, which are used as fire instead of wood. So they're talking about charcoal there. So they were using charcoal from Tibet many, many years before the West had discovered any of this stuff. It does raise a lot of questions. So it brought us to this second map that we're just going to have a little peek at. I'm not entirely sure what date it was, but it's from around the same period, maybe a bit older, maybe a bit younger, but it's definitely within 50 to 100 years of the other one. America parts over here, it's not got anything detailed. Something interesting is that Korea seems to be listed as an island, which is strange. You can see the wall of China here. That's important because if you do a Google today of where Tenduc is, it will tell you, it will probably guide you to a place in China called Hohhot, where it says that some of the Great Wall has been constructed. These maps will show you that Tenduc is quite a bit north of the Great Wall of China, and considering the dates these were constructed, the section of Hohhot that was built was apparently made, I think it was by the Qing dynasty. It basically gives a 30-year period between when this map was made and when they'd have to build this wall all the way up to there. So it doesn't really make sense when and constructed all the way up here. So unless they did that, it's impossible. It can't be Hohhot. Under here, which is really interesting, it says Tenduc, and that's the actual city here because this is the region, the Tenduc region, with the Tenduc city, and it says Tenduc, in which the Christians reigned anno J29. Now this is interesting because if we go on other pictures, other maps of this, it will say something along the lines of 1290 or J290. So has there been an O there that's been knocked off? Or is this saying that it's J29, which the J obviously means a 1, so that would be anno 129. I know a lot of people will say the J stands for Jesus, which is possible. At the moment, we're going to go with the official story that it means a 1 for the sake of arguments. So that says built in the year 129. Is there a 0 here that we can't see? You can also see the city of Tartar there, the Tartar Flu, which is the Tartar River, Magog from Gog and Magog. So we've come over to this third map now, where we can see once again Tenduc is here, and this time it says that it was created in the reign of the Christians, and I can't exactly tell what that says. I would say it could be J290 if there's a missing section there of the 9, or J213. So either way, that's saying that it's created in the year 1200s-ish, it looks like. Once again, there's the city of Mongol, there's Tartar, and see here, Karakokan, where all the Tartarian kings are supposedly buried, and there is, you can't really tell from here, but these are actual pyramids, so we'll see that on another map in a sec, just how pyramid-like they are, which raises some even more interesting questions. So, on this one, we can see Gog, so this is another different one here. We can see Tenduc here, doesn't have any list for when it was created, but we can see Gog, Mongol, and Magog is here. Looks like it's, so it says Mongol, Magog, something there. The Tartarus flew, so I think it might be talking even about this river. But so Gog and Magog again coming up, and we've got these pyramids. So these very, very tall pyramids there, and that's apparently where Tartarian emperors of old were buried. And they say the kingdom of Tartaria is underneath here, whatever that means. There's this book where we can have a little peek at what it says about Tenduc. Notice all that interesting land that it has up there. We're not doing this today, but yeah, some interesting stuff over there, like Chilaga, stuff like that, but not today. I think that's a town that's just south of Tenduc. There are, aside from Mongol up here, there isn't any reference to those names that we saw earlier. We can see Turkestan down here, which is at least a little part of it, and the Caspian Sea, which again is running east to west, which is just strange. And this here, you can't tell what it is, but that's a lake that doesn't exist anymore, called Lake Kithay, and we'll go and see that in a sec. Tartaria, where does it tell you that Tartaria is? It doesn't say Tartaria is over here. See, that's Cathay. There's China, there's India, there's Persia. Where does it say Tartaria is? That's interesting, isn't it? Right above Crimea. So what country is right above Ukraine? So as you see, Prussia, Germania, and even these look like they're a little more east than they should be, but that could just be the map, because obviously Germany should be over here and Prussia right next to it here, but this is suggesting Prussia and Germany around this coast. Obviously you can see Italia, Gaul, Hispania, Barbaria. So you see this, Barbaria, what happened there? King Arthur and some Romans apparently were having a fight over here when some Vandals, who are Tartarians, came rushing at them, started giving the Romans some trouble. King Arthur had a little skirmish with the two of them, won the battle, and these Tartarians fled south into Spain. They crossed over the Pillars of Hercules, took over this section here, and settled their capital. That's how they became the barbarians. So the take away that R, Baba Aryan. Get it? So it's the Father Aryans. These would have been Muslims coming from this bit here, going down, taking with them Islam. Well, that's the notion anyway. It's very confusing because people are going to talk about how Tartaria is Christian. Well, the Christian section of Tartaria comes from over here. Okay, so it's all backwards. It's everything is the opposite of what you've been told. The Christian sections of Tartaria comes from here, as well as the Jewish. Okay, the Jewish and the Christian sections come from here. The Muslim sections of Tartaria come from over here and down here. Obviously, this is where the Muslim sections were, which is why you see the same kind of culture between the Russians and the Tartarian bits down here going into Persia. So this was all shared, and then Islam went that way too, and down like that. You see, Christianity hasn't come from over here and spread out. It's come from over here and it's taken over, you see. Come over to the other side of the page section like this. You can actually see that Tenduc is listed as being there. We can't see the city, but we can see the region. Now Mongol up here and Tenduc down there. So as you can see, it does exist. Very hard for me to get from this angle. It does exist. There's your Caspian Sea there. Moscovia, Russia, the bit that was listed as Tartaria a second ago. You see how interesting that is, that this bit here is apparently Tartaria. So you've got to remember, Little Tartary here, Big Tartaria here, Dependent Tartary was all this section here, with bits of this bit as well, and then you've got like the Kazakh Tartarians over here. Crazy, there's so many. This is another one. You see Kazakhi Tartary. Kazakh Tartarians were down here. Yeah, this is the missing lake, which is actually quite funny as well. Check this. So this is our missing lake. It's not usually called that. It's usually a lot more polite. But this is Lake Cathay. It's completely disappeared. We think there's a possibility, because there's like a hydro power station around here nowadays, that it could be connected, but even these bits have been drained. So with the way that the water changes and the way that these lakes seem to be portrayed that aren't there anymore, we are looking at something very strange. Because again, if you guys can find any of this stuff, like these pyramids in particular, like I'll try and find this better photo for the pyramids, one sec. But I just wanted to bring you over to this one because I felt like this really emphasised that we're seeing pyramids over here as well. I was wondering if there's pyramids over here, there's tribes of Israel over here, there's a Rome over here. Is there any chance maybe there might have been an Egypt over here too? And maybe the Egypt we see today in Africa is made to look like this one? Maybe. Or maybe they're just connected. Maybe they were the same society spread out across the world. But I find that very interesting. Why are we not seeing the Siberian fucking pyramids? And also, notice how a lot of this land is painted to look extremely green, whereas this supposed section of Siberia should be pretty frosty. Not the nicest place to live, but hey. And as you can see over here, this one says Tenduc, which was founded with the Christians, something Paul J290. So that is 1290. We need to try and find it. We need to try and find this whole area and see what we can do, because there is so much. As you can see, the Magog Dictator there, Summon Gull. It sounds like it'd be from Mordor, that, doesn't it? But either way, if you guys can help me locate this stuff, that'd be great. We'll have a look as well down here where we can say our missing Lake Cathay Laketh. Cathay Laketh. Right next to this town of Emil. Let me know if you find any of these places or if you have any good ideas. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning into that episode. If you can find any of those places, get back to me, because like I say, this is apparently where some of the holy books were lost and shit like that. So there is a lot of information, a lot of intel in here that we need to get cracking into. Thank you for watching. It's good if you'd like and subscribe. If you haven't, throw a comment down in the section below, because a like and a comment really helps in our battle against the algorithm. Is there anything else I need to mention? Oh yeah, please support the channel. Like, you can join the Patreon, or you can join the channel memberships. Both of those come with a Discord, so you can come and talk to us in the Discord. That's kind of cool. But yeah, other than that, catch you later.